The stars were quiet that night. In the Andromeda sector, the largest alien fleet in the galaxy floated among the glowing gas clouds, confident and proud. Millions of ships, shaped like shining silver blades and dark crystal pyramids, patrolled the space lanes. The aliens called themselves the Virathi. They had ruled these stars for centuries, crushing anyone who dared to challenge them. They laughed at stories of humans, claiming they were nothing but weak creatures from a forgotten planet, too slow and fragile to ever matter in the galaxy. On the bridge of the Virathi flagship, Admiral Clith stared at the stars with cold blue eyes. "Keep the sensors open," he ordered, his voice sharp and echoing across the ship. "Nothing must escape our notice." Around him, hundreds of officers worked at glowing consoles, scanning every signal, every movement. The fleet felt invincible. They had never lost a battle, never faced a threat they could not destroy. Then, suddenly, a tiny blip appeared on the long-range scanners. At first, the operators ignored it. "It's probably a comet," one of them muttered. Faster than any natural object should. Faster than light. The sensors could barely track it. The readings were impossible. "Admiral," another officer said nervously, "there is something approaching. Unknown signature. No records in our database. Size appears small, but power output is off the charts." Clith narrowed his eyes. He had seen many strange things in his life, but nothing like this. "Bring it closer," he ordered. "I want to see who dares enter Virathi's space without permission." The unknown ship appeared on the main screen. It was unlike anything the Virathi had ever seen. Sleek and smooth, it seemed alive. Its hull reflected the stars, but there were no weapons visible. No turrets, no missile launchers, nothing that screamed attack. Yet it radiated power, an aura of silent authority. "Humans," someone whispered, almost afraid to say the word. It was a legend, a story told to frighten children. Humans were supposed to be weak, primitive, barely spacefaring. They had no fleets, no wars, nothing that could challenge the Virathi. Yet here was one, a single ship, and it was coming. Straight at them. Admiral Clith's hands tightened around the control console. "Prepare for attack," he commanded. "Destroy it before it reaches us." The fleet moved. Hundreds of ships accelerated toward the human vessel. Laser cannons charged, plasma missiles locked on, energy shields raised. The humans were about to face the mightiest fleet in the galaxy. The first strike came from the Virathi flagship itself. A beam of blue energy shot through space, aiming at the unknown ship, but the beam never hit. The human ship moved in a way that seemed impossible, bending and twisting through space faster than thought. Every attack missed. Every calculation the Virathi had made failed. A sense of panic began to spread among the fleet. The humans were not only fast, they were precise. Every movement seemed calculated, yet unpredictable. They dodged every weapon, every missile, with ease. "Impossible," Clith growled. "Target it again. Focus all fire." The fleet obeyed, firing volleys of energy that could destroy a planet. The human ship didn't just survive, move through them. In 4 minutes, 4 of the largest Virathi warships had vanished. Not exploded, not scattered, just gone. Their energy cores neutralized, their hulls shredded as if they had never existed. Fear swept across the Virathi bridge. Officers shouted. Calculations ran wild, and Admiral Clith realized something he had never considered. Maybe this was no ordinary enemy. Maybe this was not just a ship, but a force. Something the galaxy had never seen before. The human ship stopped for the first time, hovering silently among the wreckage. And then, a single message appeared on every screen across the Virathi fleet. Simple, clear, and chilling. "We come for peace. But we will defend if needed." The words spread like fire. Silence followed. The Virathi had no idea how to respond. They had never faced an enemy that did not attack first, that did not immediately destroy them. Something about the humans, calm, their control, made the aliens uneasy. "Admiral," one of his officers said, trembling, They are not attacking us." "No," Clith whispered, his pride and arrogance clashing with a growing terror. But that does not mean they will not. Prepare defenses. Shields up. Weapons ready. If they attack, we will not survive. Not like. The fleet moved nervously, ships scanning every inch of space, but the humans made no move. Instead, they hovered, almost observing, almost testing. And then, as quickly as it had begun, the human ship turned away. It moved past the Virathi fleet, leaving devastation in its path, but sparing lives. The aliens could not understand it. Why show such power and not destroy everything? Clith stared at the fading blip on the scanner. His mind raced. Port all. Positions of missing ships, he said, but no one needed to answer. They all knew. For ships, the best of the fleet, gone in 4 minutes, nothing left but silence. As the unknown vessel disappeared into the distance, the Virathi were left shaken. They had thought themselves untouchable. They had thought humans were weak. And now everything they knew about the galaxy was wrong. A voice spoke behind him. One of the officers, still pale, said, "Admiral, do you think they will come back?" Cliff did not answer immediately. He watched the stars where the ship had vanished. A mix of fear, respect, and curiosity filled him. "I don't know," he said finally, his voice low. "But when they do, the galaxy will never be the same." In that moment, among the glowing stars and the ruined fleet, a new chapter began. The humans had arrived. Silent, powerful, and beyond comprehension. And somewhere far away, the crew of that single ship looked back at the galaxy they had entered. They did not boast, they did not threaten. But they were ready, because humanity had always survived. And now the galaxy would see what humans could really do. The Virathi fleet limped back to their central command station. Repairs were underway, but the memory of those 4 minutes was burned into every mind. The galaxy's strongest warriors had been humbled by a single human ship, and no one understood how, in the High Council chamber. The leaders of the Virathi gathered. 12 towering figures, their skin patterned with glowing blue lines, sat around a vast round table. Room was quiet, the air heavy with tension. Admiral Clith stood in the center, his voice steady but grim. They moved like nothing we've seen before, no weapons visible, yet they neutralized 4 of our most powerful ships. They spoke only once, claiming to want peace. Peace. Counselor Vetra hissed, her voice sharp. Peace is a lie. No one builds a warship like that for peace. They spared the rest of our fleet, Clith replied. If they wanted to destroy us, they could have. That makes them even more dangerous, another counselor growled. A predator that chooses not to bite is still a predator. What do they want? No one had the answer. The human ship had vanished into uncharted space, leaving only questions behind. But the council knew one thing. They could not ignore this. If a single human ship could break their fleets in minutes, what could an entire human force do? Far away on the other side of the galaxy, the human ship drifted quietly in. The black, its name was Solaris. Inside, the crew worked in silence. Reviewing the encounter, Captain Elias Rain stood at the observation deck, watching the stars roll past. He was tall, with gray at his temples and sharp eyes that missed nothing. They were quick to fire. He said quietly. Commander Lyra, his second in command, stepped up beside him. We didn't give them much choice. He entered their territory without warning. Rain shook his head. That wasn't the problem. They attacked because they thought they could win easily. They've probably never lost before. And now, they know they can, Lyra replied. Do you think they'll come after us again? They will, Rain said. Not because of revenge, because they're afraid, and fear is dangerous. The Solaris had a mission, one that only the captain and a few officers understood. Humanity had stayed hidden for decades, watching from the edges of the galaxy, while other species fought for dominance. But something was changing. There were rumors of a dark force beyond the spiral arms, something ancient and hostile. The Solaris was humanity's first move, a warning and a promise. Back in Virathi space, the Council called for allies. Messages went out to other great powers. the Seraph Dominion, the Krolix Hives, the Velaran Empire. All were warned of the human threat. The replies were mixed. Some laughed at the idea. Others remembered old legends, stories of humans who fought wars with impossible courage, who never surrendered even when defeat was certain. On the trade world of Velnus Prime, whispers spread through the markets.
Ow.
Traders spoke of a silver ghost ship that danced through enemy fire like it was nothing. Smugglers claimed the humans had weapons that bent space itself. The galaxy had always thought of humans as primitive, but now their name carried a different weight. In a dark corner of the council chamber, a figure listened without speaking. His name was Zarvak, the Virathi's best intelligence officer. While others argued about fleets and weapons, Zarvak studied the few images they had captured of the human ship. He noticed the patterns in its movement, the strange energy pulses that came from its core. It wasn't just speed, it wasn't just power. The ship thought differently. That night, Zarvak sent a message to a hidden contact. Find out everything about humanity, he ordered. Where they came from, who they fought, how many ships like that they have, and if possible, where they are now. Solaris continued its journey, unaware that hunters were already on their trail. Captain Rain stood before his crew in the main briefing room. We sent a message, he told them. Not just to the Virathi, but to the entire galaxy. They now know humans are not prey. They'll test us again, and when they do, we'll be ready? One young pilot, Jace, raised a hand. Sir, why not destroy them now? If we're stronger, why wait for them to attack again? Rain's voice was calm, but firm. Because we're not here to start a war. We're here to make sure. The real war, the one coming, is fought on our terms. The crew didn't ask what he meant. They all knew. The threat beyond the galaxy was growing. If the humans could not unite the other species, no one would survive. But for now, the first step was done. The galaxy was paying attention. On the far edge of the Andronis sector, Admiral Cliff watched the stars, his mind heavy with questions. He had fought countless battles, but never against an enemy that showed restraint. Part of him wanted to destroy the humans. Another part wanted to understand them. He didn't know yet which part would win. The galaxy had been quiet for centuries. The quiet was gone now. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, Solaris moved like a shadow, carrying with it the most dangerous weapon in existence. Not its guns, not its shields, its people. Humans, who had waited, prepared, and now finally stepped into the light. The galaxy was no longer calm. Every major power now knew the name human. Some scoffed, some prepared for war, and some watched with quiet interest. But one thing was certain. Nobody ignored them anymore. Deep in the Velaran Empire, a council of war was forming. The Velaran were tall, four-armed warriors with gold-plated armor and a taste for conquest. Their fleets were second only to the Virathi, and their Emperor Vorek hated competition. This single ship humiliated the Virathi, Vorek said, his voice deep and cold. If the humans can do that to them, they could do it to us. I will not wait for them to strike. We will strike first. The plan was simple. Track the human ship. Trap it, destroy it, and send a message to the galaxy that humans were nothing to fear. On the Solaris, Captain Elias Rain already knew someone would come. He stood in the dim light of the strategy room, a holographic map of the galaxy floating before him. Dots marked potential ambush points. They'll try to lure us, Rain said to Commander Lyra. We'll let them think they've succeeded. Lyra raised an eyebrow. You want to walk into a trap? I want them to believe they have us, Rain replied. Only then will they reveal their real strength. And when they do, we'll show ours. The Solaris altered course, moving toward a narrow region of space called the Ashen Corridor, a dark, debris-filled stretch of dead planets and asteroid fields. It was the perfect place for an ambush. They didn't have to wait long. The moment the Solaris entered the corridor, energy spikes flared on the sensors. Dozens of Velaran warships decloaked from the shadows, surrounding them in a deadly circle. Humans. A voice boomed through the comms. Emperor Vorak himself appeared on the screen, his golden armor gleaming under the light of his throne room. "You will surrender your ship and technology, or you will be destroyed." Captain Rain didn't answer immediately. He walked calmly to the come panel, his face unreadable. "We came here to talk," he said. "You came here to fight. I'll give you one chance to change your mind." Vorak laughed, the sound echoing through space. "You are surrounded. You cannot win." "The problem," Rain said quietly. "You're looking at the wrong numbers." Before the Valeran could respond, the Solaris moved. Not forward, not backward, but through. In a blur of impossible motion, it slipped between enemy ships at angles that defied logic. Valeran gunners opened fire, but every shot missed. The Solaris weaved between them, its movement sharp and deliberate. At the same time, pulses of blue light fired from its hull not to destroy, but to disable. One by one, Valeran warships lost power. Shields fell, weapons shut down, engines went silent. In less than 3 minutes, half their fleet was dead in the water. The surviving ships regrouped, trying to form a tighter ring. But then, something they couldn't explain happened. The Solaris vanished. It didn't cloak. It didn't jump to light speed. It simply wasn't there anymore. "Find them." Vorak roared. The Valeran scanned every inch of the corridor, but the human ship was gone. Then, without warning, the Solaris reappeared right behind the Emperor's own flagship. A single pulse hit the flagship's core, freezing its systems. Vorak's command screens went black. His own guards shouted in panic. On the coms, Rain's voice returned. "You don't want your war, but if you bring it to us, you will lose. Stand down." For the first time in his reign, Emperor Vorak had no words. His pride burned, but his ships were helpless. Slowly, he gave the order to retreat. When the Valeran fleet pulled back, the Solaris remained still, watching them go. Commander Lyra turned to Rain. "You know this won't be the last time. Now the Valeran hate us too." "They don't hate us," Rain said. "They fear us, and fear can be useful." Back in the Valeran capital, Vorak summoned his generals. His voice was low, dangerous. "We will not attack them again, not until we understand them. Find me every scrap of human history, every rumor, every weakness." Meanwhile, far away, in the uncharted reaches, the Solaris received a private transmission. It was heavily encrypted, meant only for Rain. He read it silently, then locked the data in the ship's secure core. Commander Lyra noticed his expression harden. "Bad news?" she asked. "Not bad," Rain said. "Urgent. The thing we've been preparing for. It's coming sooner than expected." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "The real enemy." Rain nodded. "And when they arrive, the Virathi, the Valeran, all of them, will wish they had listened." The Solaris turned toward a distant dark part of the galaxy. The crew didn't know exactly what waited for them there, but they all felt it, the tension. The quiet before a storm that would change everything. And somewhere deep in space, beyond the maps, something vast was stirring. Watching, waiting, the galaxy thought. The human ship was the biggest threat they had to face. They were wrong. The Solaris moved like a shadow through deep space. Its engines, running silent. Captain Elias Rain had ordered a course change every 6 hours. They had left the Ashen Corridor behind, but the crew knew they weren't alone. Somewhere out there, someone was following. It started with small signs. A strange energy spike on the sensors, faint signal that seemed to vanish when scanned directly. Commander Lyra didn't like it. "Oh. Someone's on our tail," she said, watching the flickering dots on the tactical display. "Valeran?" asked Jace, the young pilot. "Maybe," Lyra replied. "Or maybe Virathi. Could be both." Captain Rain studied the display, his face calm but alert. "They're testing our awareness. They want us to know they're there, but not enough to start a fight." "Why?" Jace asked. "To make us nervous," Rain said. "Nervous ships make mistakes, and mistakes get you killed." The tailing ship stayed at the edge of sensor range, always just far enough to avoid a clear ID. But on the second day, something changed. A small, fast craft broke from the group and headed straight for the Solaris. "Intercept course," Lyra reported. "Speed is extreme. They're coming in hot." Rain gave a single nod. "Bring them in close. Let's see what they want." Small craft closed the distance in seconds. Then it slowed and began to transmit. The message was broken, full of static, but one word came through clearly: help. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. Jace frowned. "Could be a trap." "It probably is," Rain said, "but we can't ignore it. Prep docking bay 2. Non-lethal security measures only." Minutes later, the strange craft was pulled inside. Its pilot was dragged out, a tall, thin alien with pale skin and 4 insect-like eyes. He looked weak, barely able to stand. "My name is Zarvek," the alien said in a rasping voice. "I am Verithi Intelligence Division." It got everyone's attention. The Verithi were the first ones to face the Solaris. "What do you want?" Rain asked. "They are coming," Zarvek said. "Not the Verithi. Not the Verithi. Something else. Something older. You. Humans. You've seen the signs, haven't you?" Rain's expression didn't change, but inside he knew this was no lie. "How do you know about it?" "'Cause my people have been watching the dark beyond. The spiral arms for centuries," Zarvek said. "Thought it was myth. We were wrong. And now they move." Before Rain could ask more, the ship shook violently. Alarms blared. "Multiple hostiles incoming," Lyra shouted. "Velarin interceptors, 20+. They must have followed him here." "Battle stations," Rain ordered. The Solaris spun. To face the incoming fleet, the Velarin ships came in fast, weapons hot. But this time, they didn't try to disable, they fired to kill. Blue energy beams ripped through space toward the Solaris. But the human ship moved like water, flowing between attacks with impossible precision. Its defensive shields flared, absorbing hits that would have shattered other ships. Jace's hands flew across the controls. "We can't shake all of them." "Then we don't," Rain said. "Make them chase us exactly where we want." The Solaris dove into a nearby asteroid cluster. Massive rocks spun in the dark, their surfaces glittering with frozen gases. The Velarin followed, firing blindly, their beams carving chunks from the asteroids. Inside the rocks, the Solaris suddenly vanished from sensors. The Velarin spread out, searching. That's when Rain gave the order. "Release the drones." Dozens of small, fast drones shot out from the Solaris, each carrying a powerful EMP charge. They swarmed the Velarin ships like a cloud of metal insects. One by one, enemy systems went dark. Engines failed. Weapons died. The asteroid field became a graveyard of drifting ships. Only one Velarin craft escaped damaged, limping back toward its empire. Rain let it go. "They'll tell the others what happened," Lyra said. "Good," Rain replied. "Let them spread the story. Fear will keep them guessing." Zarvek, still weak but watching from the side, stepped closer. "Your technology is beyond anything we've seen, but even you cannot face what is coming alone." Rain looked at him. "You want an alliance? I want survival," Zarvek said. "And I think so do you." The Solaris resumed its journey, now carrying an unexpected passenger and even more unwanted attention. In the shadows of space, more fleets were moving, each with their own plans for the humans, but far beyond them. In the cold darkness between galaxies, something vast and ancient stirred. Its attention had turned toward the spiral arms. And for the first time in thousands of years, it began to move. The hunters had noticed the prey, and the prey had just revealed it had teeth. The Solaris drifted in quiet space, its engines low, as if the ship itself was holding its breath. For 2 days, Captain Elias Rain kept them off known trade routes, away from patrol lanes, running silent. The Velarin attack had been a warning, but not about the Vel or Inn. In the strategy room, the lights were dim. A holographic map floated. Between Rain Commander Lyra and their unexpected passenger Zarvek, small red marks showed known enemy fleets. But there was something else now, a growing black region at the very edge of the galaxy. No light came from it, no signals, no heat, just emptiness. That is where they are, Zarvek said, his voice low. We call it the Hollow. Jace, standing near the wall, frowned. Oh, that's just deep space. There's nothing there. Zarvek's 4 eyes turned toward him. That's what we thought. Until our scouts vanished there. No wreckage. No signals. Just gone. Rain studied the black region. How far in have you gone? Not far, Zarvek admitted. We are not brave in such matters. But the few who returned spoke of shadows that moved against the stars, of whispers through their combs, ships that broke apart without being touched. Lyra crossed her arms. Sounds like superstition. Rain didn't answer. Zai stayed. On the Hollow, he had heard similar stories, in places far from Varathi space. Places the official charts didn't even name. We're going there, he said finally. Jace's head snapped up. Captain, with respect, why? Because Rain said, if we wait until they come to us, it will be too late. The Solaris changed course, heading for the dark edge. Of the galaxy, the crew moved with silent purpose. Zarvek kept to himself, watching everything with a mixture of curiosity and unease. It took 3 days to reach the border of the Hollow. The stars thinned, replaced by a deep, unnatural black. It was the kind of darkness that didn't just block light, it seemed to consume it. As the Solaris approached, strange readings began to appear. Energy spikes with no source, ghost signals on the coms. The temperature inside the ship dropped. By several degrees, though the systems were stable, feels like we're being watched, Jace muttered. They're here, Zarvek said quietly. I can feel it. Then the first sign appeared. Out of the darkness, something huge drifted into view. At first it looked like a derelict ship, blackened and broken. But as the Solaris got closer, the truth became clear. It wasn't broken. It was growing. Long, dark tendrils stretched from its hull, wrapping around pieces of asteroid and pulling them in, as if feeding. Lyra's voice was tight. That's not metal. No, Rain said. It's alive. The thing turned toward them. There were no visible engines, no weapons, but the tendrils began to move faster, reaching. The Solaris backed away, but the creature was faster than expected. Evasive maneuvers, Rain ordered. Jace threw the ship into a sharp roll. The tendrils lashed through space, just missing the hull. One of them struck a drifting rock, and the rock disintegrated into dust without a sound. They can break apart matter, Lyra said. Just by touching it, more shapes began to emerge from the black, dozens of them, all drifting like shadows given form. Some were small, some massive, each with the same dark, consuming growths. We need to leave, Zarvek said urgently. Now, Rain didn't argue. Full burn. Get us clear. The Solaris shot away, engines screaming at full power. The shadow ships gave chase, but slowly, almost lazily, as if they knew they had all the time in the galaxy. Then, just as suddenly, as they had appeared, they stopped. Every shadow froze in place, watching until the Solaris crossed an invisible line in space. Only then did they drift back into the darkness. Breathing hard, Jace looked at the captain. Why'd they stop? Rain shook his head. Boundaries. Even predators have them. Lyra turned toward him. We're not telling anyone about this, are we? Oh, we're telling everyone, Rain said. Because the second those boundaries shift, no one in the galaxy will be safe. The Solaris set course for neutral space, a rare meeting point where all the great powers sometimes came to trade, argue, or threaten each other without open war. Rain's plan was dangerous. He was going to walk straight into the middle of his enemies and tell them what was coming. They won't believe you, Zarvek warned. They don't have to, Rain replied. They just have to be scared enough to listen. As the Solaris disappeared into the safer lanes of the galaxy, the Hollow remained behind them, silent, endless, and patient. And in that black emptiness, the shadow ships began to move again. This time in greater numbers. The line they had not crossed before would not hold forever. The Solaris entered the neutral station known as Concord Reach, a massive ring in deep space where the galaxy's powers met under strict rules. No weapons were allowed inside its walls. No warships could fire within 10,000 kilometers. The rules had been broken before, but never without consequences. From the observation deck, Captain Elias Rain watched alien ships arrive one by one. Virathi cruisers with their sharp silver HULLs, Velaran dreadnoughts with gold armor plates, smaller craft from lesser-known species, straighters, scouts, and mercenaries. All drawn by the same thing, curiosity. The galaxy had heard the rumors. Now they wanted to hear from the humans themselves. Inside the main council chamber, the air was thick with tension. A vast circular table filled the room, surrounded by tiered seats for observers. The alien leaders sat with guards at their backs, eyes on Rain as he entered. Counselor Vetra of the Virathi spoke first. "You asked for this meeting, human? Speak. Tell us why we should not destroy your ship and scatter your crew into the void." Rain didn't sit. He stood in the center, his voice calm but carrying through the hall. "'Cause if you do, you'll be fighting each other when the real enemy arrives." Low murmurs spread through the chamber. Emperor Vorek of the Velaran leaned forward. "We have heard your stories. Shadows in the dark, creatures that eat ships, children's tales." "They're not tales," Rain said. "We've seen them. We went to the Hollow." The chamber fell silent at the name. Even those who didn't believe the myths shifted in their seats. Rain continued. "They're not just ships. They're alive. They consume matter. They don't take prisoners. And they're waiting at the edge of the galaxy. When they decide to move, they will not care about your borders or your wars. They will take everything." Vetra's eyes narrowed. "If this is true, why come to us? Why not deal with it yourself, if you're as strong as they say?" "'Cause," Rain said, "there are too many. Even humanity cannot stand alone against them. But together, your fleets, our technology, we might have a chance." The room broke into chaos. Some shouted in anger, others in disbelief. A few, like Vetra, looked thoughtful. Vorek laughed openly. "You expect us to trust you? You appear out of nowhere, destroy fleets, and now demand we fight at your side? You could be luring us into a trap." Before Rain could reply, the station alarms blared. A voice crackled over the comms. "Unidentified objects incoming. Breach in Security Zone 3. The council chamber erupted. Guards moved to protect their leaders. Rain tapped his earpiece. "Lyra, report." Her voice came back, sharp and tense. "They're here. Multiple contacts, no heat, no engine trails. They just appeared." "Captain, it's them." The shadows had come. Through the chamber's massive windows, black shapes drifted into view, blotting out the stars. Tendrils moved slowly at first, then faster, wrapping around small defense ships stationed near the ring. The ships broke apart without firing a shot. Panic swept the chamber. Vorek barked orders to his guards. Vetra turned to Rain. "You brought them here." "They followed us," Rain said. "And now you'll see I wasn't lying." Station defense cannons opened fire. Beams of light cut into the nearest shadow ship, but the damage sealed itself almost instantly. More tendrils lashed out, tearing weapons from their mounts. Rain tapped his cum again. "Hey, Lyra, get the Solaris ready. Docking Bay 4. We're leaving in 5 minutes, with or without company." To his surprise, Vetra grabbed his arm. "If what you say is true, get me out of here alive, human, and I'll bring the Virathi fleets to your cause." Rain looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Stay close." The station shook violently. One of the larger shadow ships had rammed a support section. Lights flickered. Sirens wailed. Guards fired at tendrils that forced their way into the outer corridors. Rain led. Vetra and a handful of others through the chaos, cutting down tendrils with portable disruptors. The creatures weren't invincible, but they were relentless. They reached Docking Bay 4. The Solaris was already powering up. Commander Lyra stood at the ramp, covering them with a rifle. "Get on board," she shouted. As they lifted off, the view from the Solaris's rear cameras showed the station breaking apart. The shadow ships weren't just attacking. They were dismantling the entire structure, piece by piece, feeding on the debris. Vetra stared at the screens, her voice quiet but full of fear. Many of them are there, Rain didn't look at. Her, enough to burn the galaxy. The Solaris jumped to light speed, leaving the destruction behind. But no one on board thought they had escaped for long. For the first time, the galaxy had seen the truth. And now, there was no going back. The galaxy was no longer in denial. The attack on Concord Reach had been witnessed by leaders, soldiers, and traders from every major power. Entire fleets had watched the shadow ships rip apart the neutral station like paper. There was no longer any debate about whether the threat was real. The Virathi were the first to move. True to her word, Counselor Vetra returned to her empire and summoned every available warship. The Velarin followed reluctantly, more concerned with keeping humans from taking control than actually saving the galaxy. Smaller powers added what they could. The meeting point was a vast, empty system on the edge of the hollow. Hundreds of ships arrived, sleek Virathi cruisers, towering Velarin dreadnoughts, insect-like Krolik swarm carriers, and even a few human vessels besides the Solaris, in the middle of it all. Captain Elias Rain stood on the Solaris's bridge, watching the tactical map as green. DOTS-friendly ships formed a loose wall across the system. Commander Lyra moved up beside him. "They're here," she said quietly. Red shapes began to appear on the map, slowly at first, then in clusters. The shadow ships moved like a tide, filling the edges of the system. Their tendrils drifted lazily until the last of them arrived. Without warning, the whole swarm accelerated. "All ships," Rain said into the comms, his voice calm but hard. "This is Captain Rain of the Solaris. Open fire at will. Do not let them close." The void erupted in light. Plasma bolts, laser beams, and railgun slugs lit the darkness. Explosions flared where shadow ships were hit, but most blows only slowed them for seconds before the damage. Sealed over, the Solaris fired as well, its blue energy pulses cutting cleaner than the others. Several shadow ships fell apart under its guns, but more closed in, wrapping around alien warships and tearing them apart. "This isn't holding," Lyra called out. "It's not supposed to," Rain said. "This is just the first line." If on cue, the Solaris broke formation and surged forward, directly into the thickest part of the enemy swarm. Alien commanders shouted over comms, demanding to know what the humans were doing. But Rain ignored them. The Solaris's hull panels began to shift, sliding open to reveal long, smooth devices that no one in the galaxy had ever seen before. They glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. "What is that?" Vetra's voice crackled over the comms. "Something we hoped we'd never use," Rain replied. "Stand by to clear a path." The devices fired, not beams, not missiles, but waves of invisible force that rolled out in all directions. Where the waves touched the shadow ships, the creatures froze, their tendrils curling in on themselves. Their black holes began to crack. Apart, as if they were made of brittle glass. Across the fleet, alien crews stared in shock as dozens of shadow ships shattered silently. Their remains drifting away into nothing. "It works," Lyra shouted. "Only on the smaller ones," Rain said grimly. "The big ones will adapt." He was right. At the far edge of the swarm, a massive shadow, shippily the size of a small moon, moved forward. Its surface writhed like a living ocean, and every hit from the fleet's weapons simply vanished into its mass. "That," Rain said, "is the real problem." The great shadow ship opened, not like a mouth but like a wound, revealing a blinding white core. A beam of raw energy lanced out, slicing through 3 Virathi cruisers in a single shot. Panic spread across comms. Fleets broke formation. The swarm surged forward again. On the Solaris, Rain stayed calm. "Bring the lance online." The crew reacted instantly, opening a hidden compartment in the forward hull. From within, a long, sleek weapon extended pure white, with faint blue markings along its length. It hummed with power, drawing energy from deep within the ship. Vetra's voice returned on the comms. "Human, what is that?" "Our last card," Rain said. "If this fails, we run." The lance fired. A single bolt of blue-white light streaked across space, striking the great shadow ship directly in its core. For a moment, nothing happened then. The entire creature convulsed, its tendrils snapping wildly. The swarm broke formation, the smaller shadow ships scattering as if in pain. The massive one began to retreat, dragging itself back toward the hollow. "They're falling back," Lyra shouted, but Rain didn't smile. "Not because we beat them, because they learned something about us today. Next time they'll be ready." The fleets held position, watching as the enemy disappeared into the dark once more. The Cum's alien commanders spoke in shaken voices, some thanking the humans, others still suspicious. Vetra's final message came through before she cut the channel. "You have bought us time, human. Use it well." The Solaris turned away from the battle site, its lance folding back into the hull. Rain stood at the viewport, eyes on the stars ahead. "They'll come again," Lyra said softly. Rain nodded. "And when they do, we'll have to be stronger than this, much stronger." The War Council was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. In a single star system, hundreds of fleets floated together, Varathi silver cruisers, Balearan golden dreadnoughts, the insectoid swarms of the Krolix, and dozens of smaller species. All gathered in formation. At the center of it all was the Solaris. The attack weeks ago had forced the enemy back into the hollow, but no one believed they would stay there. If the shadow ships were alive, they would heal, grow stronger, and return. So the only choice was to take the fight to them. On the bridge of the Solaris, Captain Elias Rain studied the swirling blue tunnel of the hyperspace map. It showed the hollow not as a single location, but as a vast network of dead systems, each filled with the black creatures. Commander Lyra stepped up beside him. "We've never gone this deep before," she said quietly. "Even in the war simulations, survival rates were—" "I know," Rain interrupted. "But this isn't a simulation anymore." A message came through from Counselor Vetra aboard her flagship. "Human, all fleets are in position. Give the word and we move." Rain tapped the Cums. "All ships initiate the jump." The stars outside twisted and vanished as the galaxy's mightiest armada entered the hollow. They emerged in a system with a dead sun, surrounded by jagged black shapes. For a moment, the space was quiet, then the shadows moved. Hundreds of the creatures poured in from all directions, some larger than battleships, others as small as fighters. The swarm's movements were coordinated, pushing the fleets apart, trying to isolate them. The first minutes were chaos. Plasma fire lit the void. Explosions shook the black silence. Alien warships disappeared under clouds of tendrils. The Solaris cut through the swarm like a blade, its strange weapons shattering smaller creatures instantly. But the bigger ones resisted, forcing the crew to fire the lance again and again. Each shot drained massive amounts of power. In the middle of the battle, a warning light flashed on the Solaris's console. "They're jamming us," Lyra said. "We can't contact the other fleets." Rain's eyes narrowed. "It's not jamming. They're pulling us in." Through the viewport, the swarm shifted, revealing something vast, a black sphere, the size of a planet. Its surface crawled with movement, and a single glowing wound in its center pulsed like a heartbeat. "That," Rain said, "is their source." The Armada fought to hold the line while the Solaris pushed forward. Several alien ships broke formation. 2 follow Vetra's cruiser among them, but most stayed back, locked in desperate battles of their own. As they approached the sphere, tendrils the size of space stations lashed out. The Solaris twisted and dove between them, its crew firing, the lance at close range. Each hit burned deep into the sphere, but the damage healed almost instantly. "They're too strong," Lyra said. "Even the lance can't keep up." Rain's face was calm, but his voice was low. "That's why the Solaris was built." She looked at him sharply. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer right away. The ship dodged another tendril, then dove directly toward the sphere's glowing wound. "Finally," he said, "the Solaris isn't just a warship, it's a trigger." Before Lyra could speak, he activated a hidden command on the console. The lights across the bridge dimmed, and deep inside the Solaris, something began to hum, a sound that grew into a low vibration felt in every part of the ship. "The ship was made decades before the war even began," Rain continued. "Our scientists knew something was out here. They built the Solaris as a weapon the galaxy would never allow unless it was desperate enough to use it. The humming turned into a roar. Outside, the Lance's core began to glow brighter than a sun. Lyra's eyes widened. "If you fire that much power, it won't just kill the enemy," Rain said. "It will kill us too." The tendrils closed in, hundreds of them, but the Solaris pushed through, its engines screaming. The glowing wound of the sphere filled the viewport. Rain opened the comms one last time, broadcasting to the entire armada. "This is Captain Elias Rain of the human ship Solaris. Hold your lines, don't follow us in." Vetra's voice cut in sharply. Rain, what are you doing?" "Finishing it," he said. The Solaris dove straight into the sphere's core. At the last second, Rain activated the final sequence. The Lance fired not a single bolt, but a continuous beam, pouring all of the ship's energy into one impossible shot. The beam cut through the core, igniting something deep inside. The sphere convulsed violently. Shock waves rippled outward, tearing the swarm apart. On the bridge, alarms blared. Systems failed one by one. The hull began to crack. Lyra looked. "At Rain, we're not getting out, are we?" He smiled faintly. "We were never supposed to." The light consumed them. Outside, the armada watched as the black sphere collapsed inward, taking the swarm with it. In the space of minutes, the hollow went still. No movement. No shadows. The fleets held position for hours, scanning, waiting for the enemy to return. But nothing came. When it was clear the threat was gone, Vetra sent a single transmission to all ships. "The humans have done what no one else could. Remember this day." Years later, stories of the Solaris were told across the galaxy. Some said Rain and his crew had been destroyed. Others believed they had gone somewhere beyond, into the unknown. What everyone agreed on was this: when the galaxy's greatest powers failed, it was the humans who stood, fought, and gave everything. And that was why, whenever war came again, the fleets would always look to the stars, waiting to see if another Solaris would return.